Usually there's a little bit of a pause, so I usually count down like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And to those of you listening on the recording, welcome. It's now 7:34. We just had a few comments um, before we got started, and I see that someone just raised their hand. I believe it was Jacob. And Jacob, did you have a comment? This is ENT 101. I'm Ron Betzig. This is our first live Big Blue Button session. As I said to the group before we turned on the recording, I've done Big Blue Button, but it's been probably about 5 years because here at Jackson College, we've been using Microsoft Teams integrated with our Canvas system. That went away like a week ago. They're not offering it anymore. So I'm going back to Big Blue Button, and I might be a little bit awkward tonight. Jacob, I don't know if I got your question. If you want to type it in the chat or turn on your microphone. I did hear you. I did see you raise your hand, and Mr. Hubbard also raised your hand. So, guys, I appreciate you raising your hand. I'm trying to find your attention, but I'm not seeing that you're typing something. I'm going to type again in the text box. Please type your message below. Or
I didn't mean to raise my hand. If I did raise my hand.
Oh, that was it. I've done that too. Don't worry. I've been in meetings where I raised my hand. There was one meeting not too long ago. It's like my hand was up for like a half hour, and people said, "Ron, have you been waiting to say something?" I said, "No, I forgot that my hand was up. Sorry." So don't feel bad. All right, let's get started, guys. We have a lot to cover, and this is Entrepreneurship 101, as I said, and I'm Ron Betzig. So we're going to introduce some things tonight, and feel free at any time to interrupt me. So the number one point I want to emphasize is that what it says on this slide, the course is about you. That's why I have a little mirror there. So I love teaching this course. I've taught it for a very long time. I designed the course, and I've been teaching it pushing 15 years now. And I'll share a little bit more about me in a minute because it's our first session. You might wonder, what does this guy look like? What's his background? I think those are all, especially my background, valid question. But before I get to that, I want to say, I love this course because it's individualized. If everybody's got a different story, right? Everybody's got a slightly different passion, slightly different interests, different abilities, different situation in life. And so entrepreneurship will vary from person to person, whether it's your business idea, your target market, your talents, whether you're going in alone or with a partner, all those things are going to vary. And so I'm going to try to make it as customized as possible with a class of 30 people. I've done this many times before. So I will give you very specific information on your assignments. As you've seen in the forums, I'll be active in the forums, but the forums are primarily student-to-student interaction, as I'm going to try to emphasize tonight. Networking, interacting with lots of different people who have lots of different interests is one of the keys to success in business and certainly in entrepreneurship. And I'll try to make that point tonight. All right. So if you're shy, okay, get over it. But I'll be blunt, you've got to show interest in other people, or it's going to be very hard to succeed as an entrepreneur. And I'm saying specifically with your customers, but also as you grow and have employees, as you're working with people in the community, you've got to have a genuine, sincere interest in them and be willing to talk to them and listen to them, and kind of get over that hurdle of being shy and bashful. Doesn't mean you have to be like the life of the party. In fact, that might be a negative thing, but you have to be engaged and interested in listening. Because you will learn a lot that way. And to do that, you've got to be able to interact with people, and not just your close family and friends, but all kinds of people. Trust me, your brain works that way. Your brain is good at connecting lots of different dots. And if all of your dots are just in a cluster saying the same thing, you're not going to be that creative and innovative. But if you're getting lots of points from different people, different things that you read, different viewpoints, it will give you a better ability to come up with new ideas and to find out what's really going on, get a better perception of reality than just a narrow view from, your kinship group. All right. I'm not going to require you to do that in this class. If you take ENT 102 marketing with me, entrepreneurial marketing, you'll be required to go out and just talk to strangers. But this is an introductory course, and I don't absolutely require it. But you will get points, obviously, for interacting in the forums, and you will get extra credit points for interacting in these live sessions. All right. As I said, this is the one time I'm going to talk more about me, although I'll share, obviously stories from my life. But that's a picture taken a few years ago by my daughter, and I have a little more gray now. and probably the hairline might be a little bit more back, but I'm not like completely bald. But that's me. I'm actually 64 years now, probably 50 something there. And I feel good though. I don't want to stop teaching. I don't want to retire at 65. I hope that they'll pull me out feet first when I'm teaching because I love it, and hopefully we'll have the soundness of mind. Okay, so I love teaching. My background is business and teaching, as you can see there. So I have 2 master's degrees, and I think you guys can see my cursor when I tested this at this sector. I have a master's degree in business and a master's degree in education, and kind of similar to that, I have 20 years starting and managing companies, and a little over 20 years now full-time teaching. And they came in that order. So I got my MBA, believe it or not, 40 years ago at the University of Michigan. I just went to my 40-year business school reunion earlier this month, early October 2025 in Ann Arbor. I got to see some old friends there. And that's one of my points in networking right here. Some of those folks are still close friends, even though we often live far away. Over these past 40 years, guys, they have helped me. They've helped me find jobs. They've helped me work through personal issues. They've come to my wedding. I've spoken at some of their weddings. I've helped them with personal issues. I've helped them find jobs. That's all from people in my master's program in business administration. When I was an undergraduate at college, I haven't talked to a person from college in probably close to 40 years. I just didn't build those connections. And that's to my detriment. I think college and universities are one of the very best places in the world to network with lots of different people with lots of different interests, and often very cool people. But the sad fact is what I did as an undergraduate, this was before the internet, come to class, sit as far away from everybody when you walk in, which, trust me, people do that here too. When I teach face-to-face, that's the normal pattern. One person sits kind of in a corner, second person sits far away, next person is far away. They never talk to each other. The other option is, there's one person I know, I'll sit next to them and kind of just have side chats the whole time and not even listen, which I don't allow that. But that's kind of what happens, right? And so it's like maybe you develop 1 or 2 friends in college and then don't talk to anybody else. I encourage you not to do that, to talk to people. You'll just be amazed. I can only say this not because I'm smarter than anybody. I know because I've been teaching long enough. Most of the time, my students, they certainly have a lot more insights than I do about certain things. But I just know that because I'm a pretty old guy, and I've seen it happen where you build these connections with people, even thinking it's not going to lead to anything. But you just listen to somebody, I'm interested in this. And I could give you story after story, but I don't want the whole class to be about my stories right now. But trust me, you think, this conversation didn't go, it isn't going to lead to anything. It was interesting, but I'm not interested in what they're interested in long term. It's not going to be a business opportunity. And lo and behold, somewhere down the road, it's like the door opens. It's like, this is the person that could actually help us with this. Or they're going to help me, or I'm going to help them with something. And then later on, they'll return the favor. But it just works that way. It's called networking. Okay, so that was my little rant on my master's in business administration 40 years ago. If you're a Spartan fan, it's okay. I have friends who are Spartans, but I bleed maize and blue, went to U of M for both my master's degrees. Then 20 years later, so 21 years ago, I got my master's in education and started teaching full time. Prior to that, I got a bachelor's degree in education. Actually went, even though I'm a Michigan guy, born and raised, I went to Northwestern University in Illinois. You'll hear some of the economics creep in. You might think economics is boring. A lot of people do. But it's relevant to business, to decision-making, cost-benefit analysis, stuff like that. A little bit of a creep in as we go through the course. As I said, I've spent 20 years starting managing companies and then 21 years teaching full-time. All right. Any questions at this point before we move on? Questions or comments? All right. I'm going to give some introductory stuff here. This is one I like, and usually we'll lead off with a question that I'm going to have you guys submit something, and I'm going to say, please send your responses to my email, which is at the bottom of the screen, betsigronald@jccmi.edu. You should be able to see that. I might type it in the text box. There's not a right or wrong answer here, folks. There's a method to my madness here. There's 4 questions there. You can just wild guess. Why do I require you to send me an email? 2 things. 1, you get participation points. So when I, within the first few minutes of class, ask you to send me an email, I know that you're present in the class early, which is good for you. and I know that you're engaged in what we're talking about. Now, this one's more of a fun one than a serious question, but there's, again, as I said, there's a purpose or a method to it. So here are the 4 questions. Just within like 3 minutes, send me a quick email. Looking at the year 1906, which now is almost 120 years ago, in the United States, how long did the average person live, which is that first blank? What was the average life expectancy? You don't have to look it up in the United States, just give a wild guess, okay? Not what it is today, what it was back then. Point 2, in the same email, give me the second response. What percent of homes in the U.S. had a bathtub way back in 1906? Today, of course, it's close to 100% have a let's say bathtub or shower, indoor plumbing. What percent was that in 1906? Number 3, what percent of the homes had a telephone? I know today pretty much everybody has a telephone. My wife has 3. I have 1. So together we have 4. And but back then, obviously, not as many people had phones, and they're usually attached to a wall. So what percentage of homes had a phone? They didn't have cell phones, obviously. So there were only how many cars in the whole United States back in 1906? Excuse me. All right, just off stream of consciousness, send me an email. I'll give you guys until 7:48. I'll briefly kind of summarize what people said, but never when I do this will I say this specific person said this. So you have anonymity, but I'll kind of get a sense for what people are saying, and then I will show you. In this case, there's actually objective answers. There's research-based answers, which on some of our starter questions in future classes, they'll be strictly opinion questions. I'm hearing a ding, so I'm getting some emails. So I'll stop talking, but I'm still in the room. Let's go again, 2 more minutes, so 7:48. Please send me your emails. And those of you listening to the recording, you can send me an email when you're listening to this recording, but you won't get credit because you only get credit for the live session when you're in class. Actually, I am going to keep talking for a second. This is all in writing. Hopefully you guys have read this, but everybody's going to have to do a quiz on this session, which I haven't posted yet. So it will be posted by tomorrow morning, which is Halloween. I hope it's not going to be too scary. Don't worry. But tomorrow I will have the quiz based on this session. So it's not due tomorrow. I'm just going to post this recording and the quiz by tomorrow. The reason I say that is sometimes it takes a few hours for the recording to get posted. And since Big Blue Button is a little different than Teams, I don't want to say, hey, by 9 o'clock tonight, I'm going to have this thing posted. But I will have it posted tomorrow morning, Friday, October 31st. And then you'll have 8 until November 8th, which is a Saturday, to take the quiz. So you can watch the recording even if you're live. If you're not live, you have to watch the recording and then answer some questions. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. The advantage you have by being in the live session is hopefully you'll learn more because you'll interact with people. Number 2, you don't have to watch the recording. And number 3, you get extra credit for being here. And the more you participate, the more you get extra credit. So I now see that Irma raised your hand. Irma, did you have something? Jessica said, easier to send email through Canvas. Gmail's better for me, Jessica. Go ahead. Was that Irma?
No, this is Irma now. So do it in Gmail. I'm going to try because I'm at a campsite and I'm on my phone, and every time I click off, I lose connection.
You can do Canvas. You can do, I don't know, do they let students use Outlook anymore? I don't know. But if you can use Outlook, that's fine. Try Gmail. If it doesn't work, try Canvas.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, Irma, since you're in the class, if worst comes to worst, can you reach the text box? Do you see the text box? You could type it in.
No, actually, I can't.
Cannot. Oh, bummer. That drives me nuts because then you guys are not seeing what I'm seeing. Let me see if there's something I can do to make that more visible. No.
Well, like I said, I'm on my phone, so I don't know if that's the problem.
That could be it. Yeah. So just do your best there, Irma. And how long? You don't have to divulge any personal information, but how long do you plan to be at the camp out?
Till Monday.
Okay. So I'll tell you what. If it all fails, could you Monday or Tuesday send me an email and say, "Hey, this is Irma. Remember we talked during the BBB session?
Okay.
I was at the campsite," and then just send me your stuff then. Okay.
All right. Yep.
So folks, thanks. I just identified another reason of being in the live session because you'll get kind of special grace because I know Irma's participating, right? But she can't, she might not be able to send an email. So I'm going to give her a little break there. where if it was just somebody not in the live session, stuff is due by a certain date, right? And that's it. Okay. Now it is now 7:49. I did hear a bunch of dings. I'll just briefly review, not to bore you too much. So yeah, thank you. You guys are very participative. I like this. Boy, the first person said 48. I just have to stop there. That's really good because the life expectancy in 1906 was 47 years. So I don't know if this person looked it up. I mean, it's okay, but it's kind of more fun just to guess. I'm seeing another person in the high 50s. Somebody said 32 years. Wow. 68 years, 64 years, around 70. Well, you guys, this is rare. You guys are all like pretty good in going low. One person said 80. I will say 80 is about what it is now. So we're asking for 1906, but everybody else went low, anywhere from like 32 years to like, 60 something. So the point is that it's a lot higher now. It's 80 now and increasing, although it took a little dip during COVID. For women, it's higher. For women, it's like 82 to 83. Men, it's like closer to 80. Average, maybe 81 now. But the point is, people are living a lot longer. The question is why, and we'll get to that in a second. So question 2, though, was percentage homes with a bathtub, and it's 14%, 1 out of 7. And just a quick gander on how you guys did. Somebody said 8%, 60%. So this is all over the board. 14%, 64%, 70%. So you're all below, what it is now, which is close to 100. There's one that's at 10%. But so quick story. When I taught this once face-to-face in our Adrian campus, it was like the last week in August, and it was 100 degrees outside. And we had almost 30 people in the classroom. I said, can you imagine if we were doing this in 1906 and only 1 out of 7 of us had showered, like 4 people out of 30 had showered or bathed in the last week? It'd be a very different experience. Okay, but more on that in a second, or the kind of the benefits of all of this in a second. Only 8% of homes had a telephone. It was definitely a luxury, and it's almost a joke. If only 8 out of 100 have phones, there's not many people you can call, probably. Most of your friends and family probably don't have one, unless you're all rich, So I'm seeing 45%, 3%. That's pretty low. Yeah, you guys have a good range here. So 12%, pretty close there. But obviously, the ability to communicate that we have is unprecedented in the history of the world. I use something called WhatsApp on my cell phone. It's a free app. I don't get a financial stake in it, but I talk to people all over the world regularly, and I can send large videos and do live streaming conferences, and it's all free, and it usually works very well. Actually, often works better than just doing this class in Teams. Although I have to ask, is anybody having trouble hearing me right now? If you're having trouble, just kind of...
No, I hear you great.
Great. That I was having trouble last term with Microsoft Teams. We had a lot of audio problems, I think, which is one of the reasons the college might have ditched it, although I'm not sure that's the reason. All right, so communication. Now let's do the last of the 4 here, which is number of cars in the United States. 8,000, guys. 8,000. There are hundreds of millions of cars in the United States right now. Somebody said only 200 cars. That's a good low guess there. Somebody said 1,000. Yeah, you guys are definitely going low. Much more than many of my classes. Somebody said 75 cars. That's really low. But the point is, 8,000 cars today, more people have private jet airplanes than 8,000. So, you had to be very wealthy and have to have like your own personal car. And just think of how cars have changed the landscape of the United States. So I'm going to argue that although there's a lot of problems in our world today, I don't think anybody can dispute that. Some aspects of life are much better today than they were 100, 120 years ago. Our ability to transport ourselves freely, our ability to communicate with people around the world fairly easily. Not many people in the United States who are adults don't have a cell phone or access to one. And my goodness, living longer. I'm 64 years old. I won't go into all the details of my family health history, but I would almost certainly be a goner, and my parents would have died very young had it not been for modern medicine. And what was the other one? Oh, the bathtub. Yeah, well, I already talked about that. Life would just be a lot different if we didn't bathe regularly. So, and the upshot of all this is an introductory little exercise is the common denominator of all these are entrepreneurs. So you're asking, well, what's an entrepreneur? People will differ, but here's my definition. Entrepreneur is somebody who identifies a problem and comes up with a solution that provides enough value to people that they're willing to pay for it, pay more for it than the entrepreneur needed to produce it. So the entrepreneur can keep going, make a profit, which is an indication that you actually have a good idea. People see enough value that they'll pay for it because they get more. They don't pay for it if they don't get more value for it than they have to pay for it. At least they won't keep paying for it, right? They might buy a cell phone, but if the cell phone's a piece of junk, they won't buy it again, and they will tell all their friends and family it's a piece of junk, and you'll go out of business. So entrepreneurs have changed the landscape of our world in many ways by identifying problems and coming up with solutions. Now, I will say the damper on that is more times than not, people fail when they first start a business. But keyword there is first start a business. And if you have the mindset that, hey, this is a learning experience when I thought that they'd want this, but they didn't, that's actually the seed for a better idea. Because I can tell you in most places, most of your competitors are not taking that attitude. They get frustrated when people don't want what they want them to want, rather than saying, okay, why did this not work? Or what was it that you really wanted that you were looking for that this was not able to provide, rather than take personal offense when somebody says they don't want to buy something from you. Seeing that as a learning opportunity. And that's mostly entrepreneurs succeed after a series of failures. Not always. You might be, the first person hit it out of the park, home run, but that's uncommon. So you have to have that resiliency, and you have to, again, have that interest in other people and wanting to listen to them and learn from them. Okay, so you're identifying what is a problem that they have, not necessarily your problem, what's a problem they have, but what do you have and what do you want to help them solve? Putting those things together is the root of a really good entrepreneurial venture. Okay. And I know I'm going a little fast here, but I don't want anybody to hesitate to interrupt me either by turning your mic or looking in the chat. So now I can see that Jessica put something in the chat. The quiz, will it have to do with these guesses? I'm not going to tell you, but I haven't constructed the quiz yet. I kind of know what I'm going to do, but because every live session, I want it to be a little different because I want to see where you guys go with it. Because we might cover more of one thing and less of another. I don't know exactly what's going to be on the quiz, but I'm going to tell you, if you're in this session and paying attention, the quiz is not going to be hard. Okay, it's just not going to be hard. So it wouldn't hurt to take notes, and I'll get to that in a second. I mean, if you want to take notes, it's 47 years was the answer there, 14% for the bathtub, 8% for the telephone, 8,000 for the cars. But even that's just kind of a warm-up kind of question. It's not a big deal. All right. More importantly, I want to introduce the course. What are you going to hopefully get out of it? And again, I want feedback from you guys, but I do incorporate feedback, and I've been doing it for 15 years, but I'm always interested in what you guys want to do and what would make it better. But we definitely are going to have a lot of examples of actual entrepreneurs. And I was happy to see in our first forum, getting to know you, that a lot of people said they want to see that. So I've actually posted the Tom Monahan interview in week 2. He was the founder of Domino's Pizza, and he actually was an orphan for a few years. He and his brother both at an orphanage in Jackson, Michigan. So when I just randomly met him on a plane a few years ago, I asked him if I could interview him for my course, and he said yes. And he's a billionaire, but he wants to give all of his money away. He's now well into his 80s. When I interviewed him, he was in his late 70s. But there's an example. So Tom Monahan had a series of failures. I'm not going to go on and on about him, but first of all, having to live as an orphan for a while, having to drop out of college in his first semester because he didn't have enough money to afford the textbook, going to business with his brother, and only making money because they had a car to do free delivery and then had a fight with his brother, and his brother left the business and took the car. So if you're only making money because you're doing free delivery with a car, and then you lose the car, it's like you're sunk, right? Well, he overcame that. So that's just one quick example. You can watch that interview I did with Tom Monahan on our course homepage, Canvas, on week 2. All right. Now, point 2 on this slide, discover more about yourself to evaluate whether you should be an entrepreneur. I see from our getting to know you that a few of you are entrepreneurs, but most of you aren't, which is typical. I sometimes have like a third of the class or have started businesses. Maybe we're more like a sixth, or maybe 1 out of 5 of you have, which is perfectly fine, because this is an introductory course that applies to people who are entrepreneurs. That's group 1. Group 2, people who are really serious. I mean, they got it laid out what they want to do. And then group 3, not sure, just kind of exploring. And I have 3 kids who are actually adult children, and I still sometimes see with them, Dad, I'm still not sure what I want to do when I grow up. Maybe I'll be an entrepreneur. So that's perfectly fine, and that's actually very normal in college, trying to figure out what you want to do. So this introductory course, we try to appeal to all 3. That's little point 2. Along with point 1 of learn how other entrepreneurs have become successful is point 3. What are some of the major pitfalls to avoid? I'll share some from my experience. We'll see some from research, but you'll see a lot in the interviews, because when I interview people, I often talk about their failures, or they want to talk about their failures. What if you could do it all over again, or if you were like a student wanting to learn about entrepreneurship, what would you like to know that you didn't know, right, when you started? So because there are a lot of things that look kind of attractive just generally when you're starting a business that blow up in your face, and you go, I really wish I had known that was going to happen. So I'm a firm believer that failure is a great teacher if you let it be, but it's a lot less costly to learn from other people's failures than from your own. So we're going to try to share a lot of failures from other people and pitfalls, things that have messed up that you probably want to avoid. And then we're going to talk about, if you want to build a business plan, what are some of the elements to go into? A whole nother course is actually building a business plan, but we'll talk about business modeling in here. And really in the last 10 to 15 years, business modeling has become much more popular in the entrepreneurship community, because things are changing so rapidly, folks, that it takes a long time to do like a 50-page business plan. It's usually obsolete by the time you finish it, but a business model is a 1-page, very quick, easy to adapt and change as you get more information tool. Now in chapter, I'm pretty sure it's chapter 1, I should know for sure because I've been doing this a while, but in the latest edition it might be chapter 2. It doesn't matter. If you flip through chapter 1 and chapter 2, you'll see examples of business models. It's this like a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, that's got 9 boxes in it with information. In entrepreneurship marketing, ENT 102, we use it a lot because you're actually going out there and talking to prospective customers and gaining information. But we introduced the business model concept here. There are also a couple of videos on the Canvas homepage about business modeling you can look up. All right, let me take a breath there. Questions or comments so far? Jessica, you could hear me? Good. All right. Well, we're half an hour in, so let me get to a little bit more course details, and then I'm going to do a couple other things with you guys, and we should be able to finish 9, maybe a little after. If you have to leave at 9, it's okay. If you've taken a college course, you probably know that we should have course outcomes. I will say in this course, we're going to have a lot more outcomes than these 5, but these are the 5 that we officially put in the syllabus. You're going to identify at least 3 legal forms of business ownership. Now, just a minute ago, I was talking about, pitfalls to avoid. There are some ways you can set up a business that are really setting you up for maybe a lot of trouble. And it's a very common way to set up your business, but many people who do that, they don't know the trouble that they might be bringing on. And there's some other options that could maybe save them a lot of legal trouble and other things. So we're going to make sure that there's at least 3 different ways to set up your business legally, and what are some of the pros and cons of each way. That'll be later in the course as an assignment. Won't be a tough one if you've done a little bit of reading and a little bit of just coming to these discussions. Number 2, you're going to select the legal form of business ownership. I'm not going to say you have to incorporate or form whatever organization, but you have to say, at this point, I think this is the best setup for my company. If I were to form it today, or I already have formed it, or I'm about to form it, based on the study that I've done, this is the one I'm going to choose. A lot of people are interested in money, so we're going to talk in point 3, at least 3 sources of both. I can say that 3 times. That's small business financing. One way that people think it's going to be readily available to them almost never is readily available. Maybe some ways that you have never thought of might be better ways to go for financing your business. I don't want to spoil it right now, but we'll talk about that later on. And there'll be a lot of reading on that and some videos. Different ways to finance your business. Number 4, you're going to develop a prospective portfolio of financing your business. So kind of like 1 and 2 with 3 and 4, you'll do some study on some options, and then you'll say, well, if I were to do it today, this is how I would finance my business. These are the sources I'd be seeking. And then pretty early in the course, you're going to do a 1-minute elevator pitch. You might have heard that phrase. It's a little bit like Shark Tank, but shorter and to the point. To succinctly describe your business concepts to a prospective customer. Okay, you're actually going to do that twice in the course. A couple of years ago, I started doing it twice because I think it's a very important thing to be able to develop, first of all, the public speaking skill, because you're going to record this. And I'm going to be your only audience. Okay, you don't have to share it with the class if you don't want to. This is going to be an assignment just between you and me, but I will give you lots of feedback on your pitch in 2 ways. A lot of people are afraid of public speaking. A lot of surveys have been done to show that that's one of the people's greatest fears. In some cases, people are more afraid to speak in front of a group than to die or torture, whatever. But I know from experience, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I'll also say, if you're actually really interested in what you're talking about and you genuinely want to share this information with people because you think it's going to make your life better, and you're thinking about that rather than, do I look cool? Do I sound cool? Forget about yourself. It's about your listener. So there's a couple tips, but I think I might have posted it. I forgot if it's week 2 or week 3. You'll do your first elevator pitch. There'll be a lot of instructions on that, and I'll give you feedback. And then a couple weeks later, you'll do another one. It's just 1 minute, guys. Don't worry. So I mean, that's a fair amount. You're kind of scoping out what your business is about, how you're going to finance it, how you're going to set it up. Definitely, we're doing a lot more than that, but those are at least 5 things that you will produce before the end of the course. All right. This is a good time to ask for questions before I go into this little exercise. Questions or comments? I'm really happy that we have almost half the class present. I've had several classes where half the people come. I've had a few classes where out of 30 people, 3 people show up. So it's better to have 14 people in the room than 3. Okay. Looking one more time, no questions or comments. This will take, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes to do this exercise. This is a little case situation that was introduced to me by a math teacher. So there's a little bit of math here. Don't freak out. It's not that hard. But I kind of adapted it to entrepreneurship because 2 reasons. There is math in entrepreneurship, and there's actually some financial principles in entrepreneurship I want you to be aware of. But entrepreneurship is way more than just the math or making money or getting the financing, right? It's a lot more than that. And hopefully this little case study and this story illustrates some of that. So here we go. This is a story I wrote adapting from another case. It's like 2 pages. Stay with me. Actually, sit back. I'm going to read you a story. People tend to like stories. So it's called The Gold or the Copper. Which one would you choose? The king of complacency wanted to have a large statue of himself carved out of bronze and placed in the center of complacency's capital city. Not a patient man, the king wanted the statue completed in 20 days. So there you go. I got the setting for the story. Because I'm creative, I called this place Complacency, and the king of that place, I gave him the name the King of Complacency. But if you get the gist of that paragraph, you got this really arrogant, king who's very impatient, and he wants this huge statue of himself in the center of the city so everybody can admire it, and he wants it now, right away. All right, next paragraph, we introduce the next character of the story. And because I'm creative, I call him the servant or the sculptor. The finest sculptor in Complacency was a quiet and humble servant. In a moment of generosity, the king offered to pay the servant 100 gold coins as compensation for completing the statue in 20 days. Now, important to bottom there. Note, 1 gold coin is worth a month's wages for the servant. So you don't have to do the math in your head, but 100 gold coins is 100 months' pay 12 months in a year, that's more than 8 years pay for a 20-day gig. Pretty good if you finish it, right? Now, since this is a PG story, I don't throw in, well, maybe the king will cut off the sculptor's head if he doesn't finish it on time, but we're not going to go there. Let's just assume if he finishes it, he gets the 100 gold coins. If he doesn't finish it, probably not so good for him. All right. Next page. The servant replied, Honorable king, I will happily complete the job in 20 days, but I would rather be paid just 1 little copper coin on the first day, 2 copper coins on the second day, 4 on the third day, 8 on the fourth day, and so on, with the payment of copper coins doubling each day until I complete the job, which would be in 20 days. Note at the bottom, also important, here's the math. 1 gold coin is worth 1,000 copper coins. So if you want to do the math, remember he was offered 100 gold coins. He said, no, just give me the copper more like pennies. 1,000 copper coins make 1 gold coin. So the math is 100 gold coins would have been 100,000 copper coins. The king offered him 100,000 copper coins. He says, no, just give me 1 little copper coin on the first day, 2 on the second, 4 on the third, 8 on the fourth, double it for 20 days, 2 copper coins. I'm happy with that. So the king, the arrogant and maybe not so smart king, says, says, you foolish little servant. Thinking the servant to be a fool, the king agreed to the servant's method of payment. Did the king make the right decision? You can probably tell by my ironic, almost sarcastic tone, probably not. And also, having done this for a few years, almost everybody that does this case study with me says, no, the king made the wrong decision. But I'm going to ask you if you can try to figure out how many copper coins the servant got, because the good news on that bullet point in the middle there is the servant did, in fact, complete the job in 20 days. He got the job done, kept his head attached to his body, got the copper coins, but how many copper coins did he receive after 20 days? Don't shout it out now. Don't type in the text. If you're freaking out, just take a breath. I'm not going to require that everybody submit an answer, but I would love it if some people would try to either just give me a wild guess, not right now, maybe in 5 minutes, or whip out your calculator, phone a friend, get a piece of paper, try to figure out 1 copper coin the first day, 2 the second day, double it to 4 the third, double it to 8 the fourth, double it to 16 the fifth, and then add them all together. Called a geometric function in math. If you're really a math nerd, go for it. But we'll come back to that. I want to give you time to think about it, and if you're up for the game, do some calculating. I'm going to go to another game here, the name game. I've already, if you were here with me at the beginning, and I think most of you were, I talked about the value of networking. The first thing in networking is to get to know a person's name and to remember that name. So I know we're not meeting face to face, so this is kind of almost like a joke, raise the hand, but you can raise the hand in this. So if you know everybody's name, you'd have to actually look down there. But like if you saw all the people in the class on the street and I know who you are, of course the answer would be no, because this is an online class. But my point is, as I said a half hour ago, networking is really important, and colleges are a great place to network. So I'm going to encourage you to network, and I'm going to give you a couple tips. First thing is to try to remember the person's name, because if you're like I used to be, as soon as they tell me their name, I would forget it. So some tips here. How do you remember somebody's name? Before I give you the tips, I want to mention something from a book. Several of you, I think at least 3 or 4 of you have chosen this book for your book review. So everybody listening to my voice, you're going to have some book reviews, probably some pretty good ones. So you don't have to read this entire book, but read the reviews. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, written about 90 years ago, still a bestseller, still sells more than 1 million copies a year. I reread it a few years ago for the second time. Thought, wow, this is really good for entrepreneurship. So what's one thing that Dale Carnegie says in that book? It says, remember, a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. So number one, the fact that you know their name will help draw them to you, whether it's that first conversation or the next time you see them. And secondly, getting that person's name and then contact information is the heart of networking. Again, even if you're talking to somebody like, this person's a pastry chef and I don't even eat pastries anymore, which is my case. Still, you listen to that person, talk to them, learn about what it's like to be a pastry chef, what they're doing and all that. And you will be amazed how maybe somewhere down the road that will serve you well. I know we have at least 2 chefs in this class, by the way. So I'm looking forward to that. All right. Now, so what are the tips? One more little thing before I get tips. I just threw this one in because I found this research. Research study of business leaders. We found that networking, which they define as creating a fabric of personal contacts to provide support, feedback, insight, resources, information. I say basically talking to a lot of people and recording, the contact information. But there's their definition. Is 2 things. Simultaneously, one of the most self-evident, meaning people kind of know it's good to do this, right? Me talking to you like, you should actually go out there and talk to people probably doesn't surprise me. So it's kind of self-evident. And, it says here, one of the most dreaded developmental challenges that aspiring leaders must address. This is a Harvard Business Review study by these 2 people. So it said, even successful leaders say, well, wow, I know I have to network, but sometimes it still scares me. So if it scares you, you're not alone. Okay. This is my last study, and this one is really technical, it's very academic sounding, but here's the gist of this one. A multi-level analysis, which means they studied many things, and it's also longitudinal, which means they studied people like over 20 years, and they found 3 things. I'll give you just the nub of it. 1, people who actively network like their jobs better, in general. Okay, with a lot of data points studying people over like 20 years. People who reported that they actively network, they tend to like their job better. Secondly, they're more successful as measured by salary. So in year 1, the people who are active networkers were making more money, and then over time, the rate of growth of their salaries went up. This is true for managers as well as entrepreneurs. So they like what they're doing more, they tend to make more money throughout their career, and the rate of growth of that pay goes up. So they tend to be more successful and like their job. So they have career satisfaction, they have growth of salary over time. So it's like, well, networking sounds nice, but I don't need it if I want to be successful. Well, the data says you're more likely to be successful, both in terms of making more money and liking your job if you network. Okay, you're saying, well, Ron, let's get to how do you do it. Well, the first thing to do is, pardon my bluntness, do it, okay? If you're like I used to be, you're at an event, whether it's a party and you don't know anybody, or you're in a class and you don't know anybody, you're at a conference and there's a break and you don't know anybody, or you just know your one friend and all you do is talk to them. Don't do that. Go up to that person just standing over there and say, hi, my name's Ron. What's your name? Most people don't do that. Okay, so you got an advantage if you do that. So the first thing to do is to do it. That's number 1. Take the initiative, say your name, and ask for the person's name. Now, again, in full transparency, when I first started doing this, I was scared to death because I'm thinking, do they think I'm a total geek for approaching them? What if something stuck between my teeth or my hair is messed up? Let me say this. And so when they say their name, I forget it right away because I'm just thinking about me. I'm thinking about Ron. I'm not thinking about them. I can tell you, if you show a genuine interest in them, even if you got something stuck in your teeth, they might know something that's a little weird. But after just a little while, they're like, oh, this person is actually interested in what I want to say. I'm enjoying this conversation. If you don't believe me, read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's one of his main points. People will like talking to you if you listen to them, if you actively listen to them and take an interest in what they're saying. Because most people don't do that, right? Most people want to talk about themselves and not listen to the other person. So you're like a breath of fresh air if you actually go up and you genuinely want to hear what the person is saying. Keyword genuine there. Don't fake it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to take an interest in other people. I've already said that. So if you're like, I'm just going to do my thing and I don't care what anybody else does, it's like, okay, good luck with that one. You can sell stuff to yourself all day, but you won't get rich doing it. Okay, so take the initiative and listen. Okay, don't do what I used to do. I'm saying, hey, I'm Ron. What's your name? They say, Jeremy. I say, hi, Jeremy. And instantly, Jeremy went in one ear, out of the other. So yes, say hi, Jeremy. But when you're looking at that face, you're thinking, Jeremy, I'm trying to connect that face to Jeremy. Okay, more on that in a minute. But I'm focusing on what he's saying, and I'm not thinking about Ron at all. I don't care what I look like. I don't care that my name's Ron. I'm not going to forget that. but I don't want to forget Jeremy. So I'm thinking Jeremy in my head when he's talking. And when I'm responding, I'm saying, well, that's pretty interesting, Jeremy. I'll say his name. Don't say it every sentence. It'll sound like you're trying to sell him something. But just say it again. Cool, Jeremy, I never thought of it that way. So just you saying it is another input into your brain. You hearing it is an input in your brain. You saying it is another input into your brain. So keep more inputs coming in your brain because you'll form, I'm not a neurologist, but I just read a book on how the brain works. You'll form more neural pathways the more you repeat something and the more you focus on something. So if you're focused on him, you're literally developing a neural pathway in your brain about that person you're talking to. If you're thinking about yourself, you're forming lots more neural pathways about you, which you don't really need right now. You need more neural pathways that are going to stick about the person you're talking to. Number 3. Oh, I love this. I found this a little over a year ago, and I've shared it with every class. The Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. You go around, that looks pretty weird. It kind of is. It's more than 100 years old. It's actually like 150 years old. Psychiatrist Hermann Ebbinghaus, he studied a lot of people, and it's not old data. It's been repeated many times. The U.S. government did a big study like this just a few years ago. They found the same result. Like, Ron, what's the result? Okay, this is a graph, right? I'm an economics guy. Remember, I like graphs. So we got an up and down axis, which is retained or presented statements. That means when you learn new information or you just hear somebody say something, how much do you retain? How much do you keep over the bottom axis is time, the horizontal axis, over what period of time? And I hope you guys aren't seeing what I'm seeing where you've got a little like toolbar that's eclipsing the bottom axis. But if you do, the bottom axis just says time. And first it's like in hours, like 1 hour, and then, you know, maybe up to 24 hours, and they go into a few days. But you can see that on the upper curve here. What they're saying is after 1/3 of an hour, which is 20 minutes. So what I was saying at 8 o'clock tonight, probably you remember less than half, you know, maybe a little more than half if you're really paying attention. But on average, you've already lost close to half of it after 20 minutes. After 1 hour, you've probably lost more than half of it. After a day, you've probably lost 2/3 of it. And after 2 days, you've probably lost 3/4 of it. And, you know, after a month, you're lucky if you remember 1 out of 5 things that we discussed tonight. That's the bad news, okay? We tend to forget stuff really quickly if it's just a one and done. But I'll show you some good news later. And I'm leading up to that with point 3 here. Now we're talking about when you are networking with people. Well, spoiler alert, the way you remember things is by repetition, right? You're forming more neural pathways. So as I said a minute ago, I'm saying Jeremy inside my head. I'm also saying Jeremy when I'm talking to him. I'm forming more neural pathways. Ebbinghaus forgetting curve and his research showed the more you have repetition over time, the more you're going to remember something. It's not rocket science. But if you're not even trying to remember the person's name, you've got like, he said Jeremy and that's it. And I mean, I go home and I don't even remember that dude's name, which usually will happen if I'm not making a conscious effort to remember it. All right. So near the end of the conversation, exchange contact information. Now, I usually don't even ask for phone numbers because I think that's kind of personal. You might want to. A lot of people probably want to give them out. But I can't remember a time that somebody has not given me an email address. And I'll give you a quick story. I actually had a really good meeting with a guy today that I met at a wedding 3 weeks ago that I never, you know, we were just he was on the far side of the table from me. I'm thinking, you know, this guy's interesting. And I actually went up afterwards and said, hey, can I get contact information from you? And he paused for a second and said, how about email? And I actually thought that was almost a brush off, which usually doesn't happen. I didn't even say what kind. He just said, how about email? I thought, okay. I got his email. And so I thought, okay, he's probably not going to follow up. I followed up with him about a week later. And he said, oh, I'd love to have lunch with you. And I'll talk. And this might even turn into another video interview because this guy has a market research company that he and his wife founded that's really good at understanding customers. And I had a nice lunch with him. They say, hey, would you want to meet again? And maybe I'll record you for my class. And he said, yeah. But he's made so much money with his business. He's going on a 6-week tour of Europe. I mean, he's like in his 50s. He's been doing this for 20 years. But he made so much money in this business that he's taking 6 weeks to go to Europe. So I probably in this class won't have the interview with him. But if you really want to hear it, send me a message. And when I do have it, I'll send it to you. Okay, I missed a raised hand. Was that person that had a raised hand?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
go
me,
ahead.
Mr. Herbert. Would it be
Go
a
ahead.
brush off if you gave a person your card, like with your social media and your phone number, in your email?
I don't think it's brush off. I think it's a great way to do. I'm an old guy, so I used to carry business cards with me. I think it's fine to do that. I usually just kind of go with phone, and just try to get their phone stuff in the database and try to give them mine. Or I'll say, hey, if you give me like your email, I'll just send you an email right now and introduce myself. But I think business cards are fine. And can you please tell me, how do you pronounce your first name?
My name is Jaquavis.
Jaquavis, just like it reads. So perfect. Would you prefer I call you Jaquavis or Mr. Hubbard?
Jaquavis.
All right. Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
Good question. Appreciate you too. All right. So again, I've never had a person say you can't exchange contact information. Somebody might do that to you, but just let it roll off your back. Don't worry about it. It won't happen very often. And the story I just gave now from today, it's like, that's rare where I kind of get a feeling like maybe he doesn't want to share information with me. And then I find out he'd love to. And we had a great conversation today. And it's probably going to be a really good lead for me. He bought me lunch, by the way. There's a little reward. And I said, no, I want to buy for you. He said, no, I want to buy for you. So, and then he's going to do an interview. So there you go. There's a very fresh example from just a few hours ago. Now, here's coming back to Ebbinghaus. After the conversation, make sure that you put in a database. I used to say, like, you're going to write it on the back of a business card, but now I usually put it in my phone database. And then within 24 hours, you want to review that. And then, maybe a couple days later, just get in the habit of maybe at the end of the day, I'm going to take 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm just going to kind of review maybe some of the networking I've done at a minimum at the end of the week. And say, okay, oh yeah, I met that person there, and that person's name was this, and yeah, they're interested in this. And then maybe even put some things in the database, not just his name is Jeremy and he runs a market research firm, but his kids' names are Noah and Luke, and he's going to Europe for 6 weeks, and he worked at ABC company before he started his own business. Just a few little facts about that person. So the next time you see them, you can actually kind of restart the conversation about them. Remember, it's about them. And they will really appreciate that. Okay. So here's the good news. Remember, Ebbinghaus, this is the Ebbinghaus part 2. It's kind of the same graph, although this is a blue one. Same things on the side. This is percent retained over time. Here's that first line. It drops like a rock, right? You lose information very quickly if it's just like one input to your brain. Hi, I'm Ron. What's your name? Jeremy. Jeremy. Okay. Oh, pretty soon I'm not remembering Jeremy. But I repeat Jeremy. I go home at the end of the day. I review my database. Oh yeah, Jeremy. He was that guy who did that. And then, end of the day on Saturday, I review stuff for the week. It's like, woo! Not only does the rate drop, but I mean, it just stays up there. I got high level of retention. The next time I see that, oh yeah, Jeremy, I talked to you at that conference. I remember you have the market research firm. How was your trip to Europe? And it's like, he's all ears then, right? Because he's like, oh, he remembers me and he remembers what I'm all about. That's very cool. So that's a good way to build a connection. All right. Most people, as you may know, don't do this. And I'll just say, even when I started getting up the courage to talk to people, and if I didn't, to this day, if I don't ask them the name, 90+% of the time, they won't ask me their name, my name. And so I'll walk away from a 30-minute conversation that was interesting, and maybe I'll go home and my wife said, how was the meeting? It's like, great, I talked to this guy, it was very interesting. I told him all about it. He said, what was his name? So I never asked him his name. And then 2 weeks later, I'm in a business meeting. He's like, we need somebody who's like a pastry chef for this big event. Does anybody know it? Oh yeah, I talked to this guy who was like a 5-star pastry chef, but his restaurant just went out of business and he was looking for work. And I thought, I'll never need that information. So I didn't get his name. It's like, oh, okay. That would have been perfect. All right. Okay. Another good way, and this is what the experts say, is to associate, when you're talking to them, associate that face with that name. All right. And that's private, only something in your brain. It might be even not complimentary or insulting the person. You're not going to say it. But like the classic example, if this is a very large, obese man named Ted, and he looks like a big teddy bear, you don't go up to the next and say, I remember your Ted because you look like a big fat teddy bear. No, don't say that. But if you're thinking that, you can say, oh yeah, he's the big guy who looks like a teddy bear. His name is Ted. That's an obvious connection, right? But it's a connection that's just to you. You don't insult the person. My only point is we all have differently wired brains. So there's something in that person when you're looking to them talk, especially in their face, because you want to be able to recognize the face next time you see them. and connect it to the name. And there are websites that do this. I have some references in a minute, but obviously if their name is Brian, I think in this website, the guy says, well, imagine that even if he doesn't have a large head, imagine as you're talking to him, he's got this huge brain, right? And brain is kind of like Brian. If that works for you, do it. If it doesn't, okay. Another obvious one would be if you're talking to someone named Lisa and she's got a smile or hair or whatever looks like the Mona Lisa, although hair can change, right? But something about their face or the way you imagine their face, so that you'll remember it the next time you see it, connecting it to their name. Again, I'm recording this, so I'm not going to read through all the references, but like I've got Carnegie, and a lot of what I just shared with you is research-based, if you guys want to follow up on that. All right. Feel free to bring in comments about what we just talked about, but I'm going to come back to the gold or the copper. Remember that servant who said, I'm going to do it in 20 days for copper coins, which aren't worth much, instead of all the gold the king offered me. The king thought the servant was a fool for doing that. I think we kind of know that the servant was smarter than we thought, and he probably made more money with the copper option. Did anybody try to do the math or have kind of a wild guess? How many copper coins did that servant end up with after 20 days of work? Anybody get a guess or do a calculation? Multiple users are typing. That's music to my ears. I love it. Yeah, we'll see it when you hit enter. Take your time, folks. I'm happy that a lot of people are answering the question. Okay, first out of the gate is Jessica. Oh, Jessica, this rarely happens. If that period were a comma, if it were 8,575, that would be right, just over 1 million. By the way, if you haven't been to Europe, in Europe they use commas where we use periods, and we use periods where they use commas. But yes, we use commas here. So the second person, Jacob, got it. You guys are awesome. I don't think I've ever had the first. I've done this probably 50 times. I don't think I've had the first two people. The first three people nailed it. Almost always somebody says 500,000. It's okay. Don't worry about the column, Jessica. The reasons, I think one of the reasons is that a lot of people come up with 500,000 is on the last day, he got 500,000. But that doubled what he got on the previous, right? What he had already. On day 9, by day 19, he had earned 500,000. And then he got another 500,000 on day 20. Okay, 500,000 copper coins. So you're right. That might surprise some of you. There's that little over 1 million. I don't know if when I move my cursor if it blocks it. So let me try this again. I faded. Good. It's going to be hard for me not to use cursor, but look at the chart with me, guys. There's 6 columns: day, coins added, cumulative coins, then again day, coins added, cumulative coins. So it's really just 3 columns, but I didn't want to have 3 long skinny columns. So I cut. If you look at the first column, which is day, it goes 1 through 10. I cut it, and then if you go to the fourth column, which is also day, it's day 11 through 20. So I cut it in half, so it wasn't long, thin columns. All right. Day 1, obviously, he gets 1 coin, and he has 1 coin at the end of the day. Day 2, he gets 2 coins, but he already had 1 coin. So if you look at cumulative coins for day 2, he's got 3. And then last example, day 3, he gets 4 coins, which was double the 2 from the previous day. But he had a total of 3 at the end of day 2. So 3 plus the 4 he got on day 3. At the end of day 3, he's got 7. And you can see it about doubles every day, kind of rounding up. But, 15 goes to 31 in the cumulative column, goes to 63, goes to 127. Those are doublings, okay? And at the end of day 10, he's got about 1,000 copper coins, which would be the equivalent of 1 gold coin. But at the end of day 20, he's got 1 million. Now, even if you love math or hate math, I can tell you 1 million is 1,000 thousands. But in the first 10 days, he's got 1,000. In the second 10 days, his 1,000 goes to 1 million. This is not all that uncommon. Okay, people who are money managers, Warren Buffett is probably the most successful money manager, investor of all time, multi-billionaire, almost 100 years old. His partner, Charlie Munger, who died a couple years ago at the age of 100, I think he was famous for the saying, making your first $100,000 is the hardest, which is largely true. Because after that, this thing kicks in, okay? And you can go from 100,000 to 1 million pretty quickly. Look, we go from 1,000 to 1 million pretty quickly here. If we did this for 10 more days, guys, and it was 30 days, that million would be 1 billion with a B. Okay, every 10 days it's going to be 1,000-fold more. Now, that's a doubling scenario. I'm not promising you your business is going to double every year. In fact, your business shouldn't double every year because that's growing too fast. But what I'm showing here is more than one thing. First, the mathematical power of compounding, which applies to finance. So, as I'll show you in a few minutes, there's something called the rule of 72. Even if you just earn 10% a year, you'll double your money in a little over 7 years. And those of you who are particularly young, which is a lot of you, all of you are probably younger than me. I'm 64. If you're older than me, more power to you. But chances are in your life you're going to have a lot of 7-year increments. So like if you had 35 years, let's say you want to retire 35 years from now, which would be pretty young for a lot of you. You do 5 doublings. 1,000 doubles to 2,000 doubles to 4,000 doubles to 8,000 doubles to 16,000 doubles to 32,000. $1,000 would be 32,000 with 5 doublings. Okay, and that's just earning 10% a year, which is actually pretty low for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, if you're going to be successful in business, you probably want to be making 20 to 40% year return. If you want an investor, they're going to be expecting closer to 40% year return because it's risky, right? Most new ventures fail. So the ones that hit, you expect to do really well, or people wouldn't invest in you. So if you're earning even 20% a year, you're doubling about every 3.5 years. So you do that gig for 35 years and you got 10 doublings, which means it's more like this, right? It's more like this, thousands turning into millions. Okay. And that's for every year. Every year you're like investing, say 1,000 and it's doubling. Okay. Now that's the numbers, but that's not the only reason I wanted to show you this. More important than the numbers is what's behind the numbers. Think about it. Put your position in either the sculptor in the story or just an entrepreneur who's starting up. Pretty high pressure. You know the chance of failure, the consequences of failure are not good. If you succeed, it's going to be a big payoff. You want to succeed. So you're working hard. And maybe even, you just got out of college, or maybe you're leaving college to do this, and you could have gotten some job offers because you're ambitious and you're smart and all of that. You're a good networker. But you say, no, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to start my own business. And so you start working harder than you ever worked. By the way, I had lunch with today. One of the reasons he's taking 6 months to Europe, 6-month trip with his wife to Europe is not just because he's got a lot of money, but it's like he said, I've been working really hard for a long time and I need a break. So you're going to be working really hard when you start this thing for quite a while. And you're like the sculptor. Follow the numbers with me. Hopefully you can see, day one, he's working 12, 14 hours a day. He's going. I recommend taking a day off even when you're busy. But let's say he doesn't because he's got 20 days and then done. And he gets to day 10. He's exhausted. He's out there in the public square, very visible, probably hot. He's sweating. He's dirty. He's got very little sleep. He's exhausted. And he's got 1,000 copper coins. And then, to make matters worse, some of his classmates show up. They drive in their little BMWs. They step out in their nice little business suits and say, hey, I'm working at the bank. I got banker's hours. I'm working 30 hours a week. Got a lot of paid vacations. Driving my little BMW. Got my little 401k that's already, really making money. Got my gold watch. What's wrong with you, dude? You look pretty bad. You're sweating. How much money are you making? Well, I'm making close to nothing. I don't have enough money right now to buy another set of clothes. And I'm just working all the time. And got a few copper coins here. It's like, dude, why don't you go get a real job? So I'm asking all of you, listening to my voice, what do most people do at that point? They've been working really hard. They don't see the fruits of their labor. And then family and friends are saying, we're worried about you. You're working and you're like dirty and not making any money. And maybe you're even in debt at this point. What do most people do at that point?
They give up.
You got it. They quit. Most people do. So most new businesses fail. Most new businesses fail because people quit. Now, I'm not saying there aren't reasons to quit. You're learning like maybe this isn't going to work. But sometimes they just quit because they were overly optimistic that, I'm going to be doing this like for a couple months and I'll start making $300,000 a year after that because everybody's going to flock to me and love what I'm doing. And then I'll be taking 6-week vacations after 1 year of work. No. The 6 weeks comes after 20 years of work, maybe. Okay, so most people do quit. But here's the deal. Here's the main point I want to make. If you say, wow, I just feel like yesterday was the worst day of my life. I felt like everything was going wrong. People were mocking me. I felt like people were knocking me in the dirt, stepping on the back of my head. And I wake up and I go, what was I thinking? And I go, okay, what would I rather do? It's like, no, there's nothing I'd rather do. I'm passionate about this. I know that people want this. I just have to keep going and develop it, and we'll get the word out and it will happen. And you go back in. Now, then you're an entrepreneur because you've got the passion. You know that this can work. And you know this is what people are going to want. They just don't know it yet. Okay, so you go back in, and here's the cool thing. After day 10, you only had 1,000, but then you start seeing, oh, well, after day 11, I doubled it, and I got 2,000. Well, that's a little bit better. I'm eating more than McDonald's now. And then 4,000, 8,000, 16,000, 32,000. You're day 15, and you're doing a lot better. Day 17, you passed that 100,000 that the king offered you. Remember, 100 gold coins was 100,000 copper. So you blew the king away after 17 days, and then we get into the real money. This is Charlie Munger, right? The first 100,000 is the hardest. Once you get that first 100,000, you just let your money work for you. You're still working for your money, but your money is definitely working for you after you accumulate 100,000 plus. So you go to $250,000, $500,000, and $1 million in 4 cycles, right? So yeah, and again, 10 more cycles, and you're at $1 billion. So the payoff is there, but the payoff is not immediate. Now, it's more than numbers again. So let me try to connect the other part of what we talked about tonight with the numbers here. You're probably not a sculptor in the middle of the city, working for the king, but you are working really hard, and your rewards are almost certainly very low in those first few days. But you're still working hard, and then you're working even longer than you expected before seeing some rewards. But what are you doing? You're networking like crazy. You're talking to everybody and trying to understand what they want. You're spreading the good word about your business. You're making those connections. You're going to charity events. You're going to, public events. You're going to classes. You're just talking to people. You're thinking about maybe, certain people who can work with you in developing partnerships. You're listening to people about, would you buy this? And they go, no. Well, what is it that you would be interested in? What wouldn't work for you and all that? You're trying to make sales. People are saying, oh, maybe I'll come back to you. But you're doing all that stuff. So you are working really hard. And you're thinking, you get like to day 10, through the stuff. I got a little bit, but man, it's just not connecting. I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor. But then, you kind of get to day 11. And remember, maybe you made one sale in day 8, but it was a small one. And they said, yeah, I think I'll probably come back. And then, they don't for a while. And then they come back on day 11 and they say, they don't just come back alone. They come back with 4 friends. And say, I told my friends about this thing. We've taken us a while, but we've come back and they're all interested. Okay. And then maybe on day 14 or cycle 14 of those 4 people, 2 of them come back and they say, we're actually having a big event. Can you take care of 1,000? Or maybe it's a restaurant catering. Can you take care of 1,000 people over this 3-week period when we're having this big convention? And you actually might have to say no, which is another class that we're going to do that. You don't want to grow too fast. You're like, oh, okay. And then, just so many things that you kind of had these irons in the fire. You've been networking, you've been putting things together, and it just takes time for all of that to accumulate. And a lot of it, the networking is you have a satisfied customer. They tell somebody else, they tell somebody else, they tell somebody else. And it's that cumulative thing. Maybe you get 2 people back, great. But then a couple weeks later, you get 4 back. And then a couple weeks later, you get 8 back. And then, it just starts snowballing. I'll give you a tip here, and more of this on a later class. Number one reason people fail is that, they give up, right? And they just don't see the fruit. The number actually tied or maybe even surpassing the number one reason is people grow too fast. Because if you do grow too fast, that great service you're providing to the first few customers you had, as you grow too big, you can't provide that level of service because you have not grown the infrastructure, and that's usually people. You might be passionate, you might be dedicated, you might be good at what you do, you might be listening to your customer, understand what they need, and then you get all this business. Say, you see this dude on the street, and you go, hey, you want a job? Okay. And this guy is he knows nothing about what you're doing. He or she, they don't really care, they just want a job. And say, okay, I'm going to put you in charge of this, and all of a sudden they're just giving very poor service, very poor quality, because they really don't care. But because, oh, I had all this business and I had to hire more people to take care of the business, don't do that. Only hire the people that you've carefully vetted and developed and trained to give the same level of service that your customers are used to, or it will destroy your brand, and your brand is your reputation. So businesses often fail because they grow too fast. And I know that's going to be true for some of you, that you're going to have successes. I just want you to be aware, it's so easy to get the big head like the king. And when you get successful, start thinking, oh, I'm just smarter than everybody, and so I can just do whatever I want, and the gold will come to me. When you start developing that attitude, you're going to be in trouble. So you have to keep that humility, and you have to say, well, we're going to grow at a reasonable pace. I'm going to bring in people. I'm going to carefully vet them, carefully train them, and we're going to build this thing at a reasonable pace so we don't compromise the level of quality we've been delivering, because that's the key to our success, is satisfying our customer. Okay, that was a lot. I got 15 more minutes worth of stuff, but any thoughts, comments, questions on this and how it relates to maybe your journey or entrepreneurship in general?
What businesses have you started?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I'll go kind of quickly, maybe more in a later discussion. So my first one was when I was in business school. If you remember me talking in the beginning, when I was in business school, we met some people, and we worked on group projects, and then we had a club for entrepreneurship, but then we actually started a business after our first year, and we started going to local businesses saying, hey, we can actually write business plans for you guys. We can help you with operations management. And we actually sold a lot of contracts, and we did a lot of work, which then when the school year started up again, we were working and going to school at the same time, which I totally support. I know some people can't do that for various reasons, but if you can at least work part-time in an industry you're interested in and go to school and taking business classes, they'll complement each other. Okay, so that was business one. And that business actually continued for a few years after business school. Successive classes kept working in it. And then a friend and I that had helped me start the consulting company during business school, we started an import-export business with customized clothing, which I know some of you want to do. But these were hand-knit things from Europe. And that one went for a little over a year. I had a retail store, and it closed. I learned a lot from that. One thing is, just because people in Michigan buy heavy, hand-knit clothing, I actually started this one in a place south of Michigan thinking, well, they'll still love it. No, they didn't. The climate was warmer. I went into a place for retail because it was a cheap rent, which was a really bad idea. It's cheap rent because you don't get near the customer flow that you do at some of the more expensive retail outlets. I know today it's a different game with the internet. You can do a lot of selling through the internet, but you have to go to where your customers are, right? You can't say, well, I'm just going to start cheap and people will come to me. No, you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money, but you have to go to where your customers are. So I learned that. I learned some other things about managing people too. So that was number two. And then I went back into consulting for a little while, and then I got a great opportunity to get in the ground floor of a manufacturing company in the late 80s that was just starting up. And that one did very well because the 1990s were really good in the auto industry. A lot of you guys probably weren't even alive in the 1990s. But the American auto industry did very well in the 1990s as people from my generation, the baby boomers, they were getting married, having kids, buying minivans, buying SUVs. SUVs weren't even a thing before the 90s. And so Detroit was making a lot of those things. So we were making parts and we were making manufacturing machines for the auto industry. So our company was one of the fastest growing companies in the state of Michigan during the 90s. We got up to 250 employees. And I did that for 14 years. By this time, I was married with 3 kids, and I was working all the time. Factory I managed was open 24 hours a day with 3 shifts. And so I just wanted to spend more time with my kids, and I always loved teaching. So I said, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet because I'm never going to be able to recapture this time with my kids. My oldest child was going into middle school. So I got like 5 or 6 years, and then she's gone. So I went and I got that degree in education and became a full-time teacher, got back on their schedule, and, summers off and weekends off and stuff like that. So I don't regret that a bit. But I've also had like a tutoring business, which I don't do very much now because I do a lot of teaching, just regular, that I ran for a while. So that's a fast answer, I think Jaquan, if I'm saying it right. But thanks for asking that. Okay. Now, very briefly, I'm going to review the syllabus. You guys, I think everybody got 100 on the syllabus quiz, but I'd be remiss if I didn't make it 100% clear. This is our main textbook, Entrepreneurship. It's posted online, 5th edition. There's a link to it. Every now and then somebody wants a paper copy. You can get one, but you have to pay for it. Just ask for the 5th edition. All right. Don't forget, this is a very fast-paced 7-week course. Don't get behind. Last day of the course is December 13th. I do not accept late work, so please don't wait till the last minute to turn stuff in. I usually get every semester 1 or 2 people send me a message at like 1 o'clock in the morning, say, "Oh, I was about to send it in 1 minute before it was due, and my computer crashed." And my answer is, don't wait until the last minute to send it in. Actually, try a couple days in advance of when it's due, because then if something crashes, either maybe I can help you or somebody in IT can help you, and it's not a panic. At least start the assignment a few days in advance so you know kind of what you need to do and you can pace yourself. Don't wait till the last minute. But some people always wait till the last minute, and if they don't get it in by the last minute, I don't give them credit. Okay, there will be a quiz based on this, as I said earlier, whether you're listening to me right now live or a recording. So look for that quiz. I will have it posted sometime tomorrow, which is October 31st, Halloween. As I said, it won't be too scary. It'll be pretty straightforward. And when you participate in these sessions, and a few of you have, you'll earn more extra credit. A couple other quick things. If you haven't carefully looked, assignments are 40% of your grade, and I'll give you specific individual feedback on every assignment. Quizzes are worth 30%. Most of those are right out of the textbook, but you only get 1 try. So read the textbook carefully. Make sure you know the right answer. You're not going to get 3 tries to answer a 4-choice multiple choice question. I think that's ridiculous. You get 3 tries for 4 chances. You don't even have to read the textbook. You just wild guess. You're not learning anything. We're both wasting our time. So you only get 1 chance at the quizzes, but it's open book. They won't be that hard if you're actually studying the book. And if you participate and then come into the online forums, which are required, you will earn 30% of your grade and extra credit, which will really help you on participation. So you can even have a couple of bad quizzes or assignments, and the extra credit here will bolster your grade. Okay. This is posted on your homepage. I'm almost running out of time, but I've already alluded to it. Jim Collins, really nice short video. This guy has probably done more research of successful entrepreneurs, successful business leaders than anybody. Now all his company does is study what works in business. He studied tens of thousands of companies, and his books are bestsellers. But this thing called the hedgehog concept, which applies mostly to entrepreneurs, is 3 main things. If they're in place for you, you're way more likely to succeed. And folks, every time I say this, I kind of go, well, duh. But then I say, well, actually, most people I know don't have all 3 when they start. And that's one of the reasons they fail. So what are the big 3 if you want to start your own business? Be passionate about what you do. Because like that sculptor, you're going to have those days where you feel like everybody's just knocking you in the dirt and mocking you. And if you're not passionate, you're going to quit. I mean, the sales aren't coming in like you expected. You're just having lots of setbacks. It will happen. And if you're not passionate, you're going to quit. So don't waste your time because you want to make a lot of money, but you really don't care about this business. All right. Number 2, I'm passionate about singing, but you're never going to pay me to sing. So you've got to go into something that you do really well. Now, I'm not saying like the moment that you hit adulthood, you have to be an expert in this area, but you have to know, hey, I actually have a talent for this. If you're going to be designing clothing, you should know I actually have a talent. And like if I design some of my own stuff, people are constantly commenting on like, where can I buy that? I don't know if I'll give a case study, but I don't have time tonight. But there are definitely successful entrepreneurs you've heard of where that's been the case, where one of the reasons they went into it is that they were just designing stuff for themselves, and everybody's saying like, where can I buy that? I love it. And that was the impetus for them. It's like, oh, people really value it. And then that kind of leads into number 3, which is even if you're passionate and you're really good at something, other people have to want to buy it, right? They see the value in it where they want to buy it. And again, that's like duh. If people don't want to buy it, you're not going to make money. But that's true. But a lot of people say, hey, I'm good at this thing. I love it. I might even be good at singing Gregorian chant. really good at it and love doing it, but I'm probably not going to sell many, many Gregorian chant, what I'll call records. People are probably not going to, I'm probably not going to pack out a football stadium singing Gregorian chant with 100,000 people want to come hear me do that. It's not going to happen because there just is not enough market interest in that thing that I do really well and love doing. That is what we call a hobby. And some of you have hobbies that you're thinking about making into businesses. We'll talk about that. You might even make a little spare change as a side hustle. But hopefully we can start doing the research where you realize, okay, I'm good at this. I love doing it. And maybe I can make a little money, but I don't think I'm ever going to be able to live on this. And that's okay. So if those three things are in place, you have the basis for a good business. If only a couple of them are in place, maybe if you don't have passion and kind of a reasonable business model that people want to buy, probably not. Okay, I'll go through this pretty quickly. This is finishing up the financial bit, which I'll get to the nub of it quickly. But my point here is, if you just have money and you sit in a drawer, it's going to lose value. I think we all know that. I mean, we've had some inflation in recent years. It's going to lose money if you don't do anything with it. But the truth is, money does not always, you don't always just lose value. That is, it's possible to invest money and make it grow. I mean, I kind of showed that with the example of the sculptor and the numbers I showed you, the doubling every time. But the question is here, what makes it grow? And we could spend a half hour talking about that, but since we only have 5 minutes, we'll get to the nub. It's not a surprise. In my view, what makes it grow is entrepreneurs, and I really believe that. If you think about it, this is what grows an economy. New businesses start, or even existing businesses come up with new products and new services. Why? Because they identify problems in the world, problems in the marketplace that people are really struggling with, or they're just unhappy with. They want something, and they're just not getting what they want, what they need. And if you're able to identify that and say, you know what, we could actually do this better. Now, spoiler alert, I think we'll talk about this next week, but the number one way that people come up with good business ideas is they're actually working in a business, in an industry, and they're seeing, wow, we kind of do these things well, but this is messed up. Nobody's happy with the way this works. And sometimes they go to their boss and say, hey, we could actually do this better. And sometimes their boss says, okay, let's try it. But sometimes their boss says, shut up, dude. We know what we're doing here. And so then you go off and you say, well, okay, have a nice day. And you don't burn the bridge, but you actually start your own business saying, I think we could actually do this better. So that's one of the reasons why I encourage working at least part-time while you're going to school, because as you're in the workplace, you're seeing stuff that is just kind of messed up. Any of you who have had jobs know this. Things are messed up. But if you see that as more than just a problem, it's wow, but this could be an opportunity. We could actually do this better, because I'm seeing that people really want this and we could do this for them, but we're just not set up to do it that way. And that's the number one way that people find business ideas, but not the only one. Okay, a couple more things, and then I'll leave it open for questions and comments and networking. The last thing is this finance thing. I alluded to it a few minutes ago. I'm not going to, well, this might be a quick question on the quiz, okay? But you don't have to master this rule. But when I tell this to people, and I do it in the finance class too, most people I know who have been in business for many years, they don't know this rule. Well, what is it? It's an equation. If you look at the bottom of your screen, and sometimes Big Blue Button or Teams will distort it, but it's just an equation with three things. One is, how many years does it take for your money to double? Then the equal sign, and the other two things are the number 72, and this is a division symbol, like a fraction, 72 divided by the annual rate of return. So as I said a few minutes ago, say if your money averages 10% a year, which just in the US stock market, historically, it's actually averaged a little better than 10% a year. But let's say you average 10% a year. Well, 72 divided by 10 is 7.2, which means your money will double every 7.2 years. In entrepreneurship, because you're taking more risk, more return is expected, your investors might want 40%, but let's say you produce 20% a year return. Well, 72 divided by 20 is 3.6 years to double, right? 10% would give you 7.2 years to double. If you increase from 10% to 20% return, you cut in half the time it takes to double your money. So you go from 7.2 years to 3.6 years. And if you're doubling every 3.6 years, you're not going to be an old person by the time you've got a lot of money. All right. So just keep that in mind. And kind of this chart shows that. Now, a lot of people, they get money they put in the bank. I'm not saying that's wrong, but if you're lucky these days, maybe they'll give you 1% in a simple interest account. It's going to take you 72 years to double your money, because 72 over 1% return. I'm for sure going to be dead in 72 years. Many of you will be. I don't want to be too depressing, but you're not going to get rich by putting your money in the bank and make 1% a year. You say, well, I found an account that will give me 2% a year. Okay, well, you'll double your money in 36 years then. I'll be 100 years old in 36 years. I probably won't be spending a lot of money then. And then, but if you up it to 10%, I said 7.2 years, and you can see that if you're making 20% a year, you're doubling every 3.6 years, which can make you pretty rich within a decade or two. All right, that's my last slide. So I got 1 minute left, but I'm staying past 9. If you guys if you want to talk, what would you guys like to talk about? It's kind of open forum now. I only lost one person. We still have 13 in the room. So what's on your mind, folks? Maybe I'll start by butchering people's name. Is it ADIA? Adia? Aiden is probably AIDE. Say again.
It's Adia.
Adia, thank you. I was kind of Adia. I've never known an Adia. I like that name.
Thank you.
Can you share with you don't have to, but can you share with us is there a meaning behind Adia, or why were you named that?
My parents always just told me that they found the name and they liked it, so there isn't really a meaning behind it.
I like the sound. Because these are in alphabetical order by first name. I found that Aiden and younger generations is a very popular name. In my generation, baby boomers, almost nobody was named Aiden. But Aiden is pretty popular now. I like that name too. Ebony is a pretty popular name for my generation. Ingrid, very popular even from my parents' generation. Ingrid is a common name. Irma, also fairly popular. Jacob, I think, is one of those names that's like classic through generations. I know a lot of young Jacobs. I know a lot of old Jacobs. It's a biblical name, so it's like 3,000 years old. Jacob is a very classic name. I have a lot of Jacobs in my classes. Similarly with James, it's one of the more timeless names. I think it was Jaquavis, first time I've heard it, but a very cool name. Jessica is kind of a common name. Nicholas, I know a lot of people from Greece. Nick and Nicholas is the #1 name in Greece, but still pretty common in the USA. Sebastian, I haven't known a lot of Sebastians, but I've seen the name. I like the name. Now let's see if I can scroll down. For some reason, it's freezing on me. I think I hit the end. So unfortunately, this is not a face-to-face class, but my goal in face-to-face classes is by class 2 to associate everybody's name with a face. But at least I'm trying to familiarize myself with your name. So as I'm reading your work, I'm getting a sense to who you are, right? So when I see the name Nicholas, I'll say, oh yeah, Nicholas is interested in this kind of business, and da-da-da-da-da. Hopefully within a week or two, I'll get to that point by just seeing your name, I'll kind of know more about you. But you'll help if you share now more. I see Jessica's typing. If you share more about yourself. So a couple people have. I did that little rant on people's names to get you guys participating. So Ebony said, my business idea is owning an assisted living home. I've had a couple of students in the last year interested in doing that. One who was doing it was very close to starting her own business. And another one who was interested in doing it but was not actively doing it. Aiden says, my name wasn't popular until the year following, a year or two after I was born. Any clue, Aiden, as to what made your name popular? Was it a famous person named Aiden that made parents want to name their kids Aiden? I don't know. Jessica said you haven't met a young Jessica. Oh my gosh. So I have a class with 2 Jessicas in it, and one of them wanted to be called Jessie, so that's how we solved the confusion. Isn't that funny? And they're both under 30 for sure. I haven't asked them their age, but they both look well under 30. So there you go. There are some Jessicas out there. Now, Aiden, I don't know if Aiden's responding to my question. Jessica's typing. Again, it's open forum, guys. We're just trying to get to know each other. You have questions about your business idea, you want to share some stuff, that'd be cool. still 12 people in the room. I'm still recording. What I'll always do is after a few minutes, I'll stop recording in case you guys want to talk off the record. We're just at about an hour and a half. I think I'm going to turn off the recording to respect the time of the people listening to the recording. So we're hitting an hour and a half. I'm going to turn off the recording. Send me an email, those of you on the recording. But I'm going to stay in the room when I turn off the recording now.